Jar Jar Binks. You are listening to Behind the Lens.
And yes, you are listening to Behind the Lens. Yes, you like that?
I love that entrance. That was
You
great.
like Jar Jar? And Brian, we lost headphone again. No. Yeah, that's better. Yes. Oh, welcome to another fun week of Behind the Lens. I'm thrilled today because Jar Jar Binks, as many of you know, the voicing is actually done by my good friend Steve Alaric.
Oh.
Steve actually played Simba on Broadway.
Get out.
In The Lion King.
Yeah.
But when he had to audition, they wanted to know what could he do to set him apart.
Mm-hmm.
And he could do the voice of Jar Jar Binks. And
Who
that's
knew?
what he did for an audition.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and of course, I am beyond thrilled. So I have Steve's talents with Jar Jar Binks, but the wonderful BYRON Beane is back.
Hello.
Yay! This is very exciting. It's been a while because BYRON lives in New York.
That's true.
And it was one of the nicest messages that I have gotten in a long time when he said, "Hey, can I come co-pilot your show? I'm going to be in town."
I would love to do it. I love being here with you.
And I love having you here. I love having you here. This is so much fun.
Yes.
So what the heck have you been doing?
Still up to producing and talent managing. A handful of clients, creative production, which I love, as you know.
Yeah, yes, you're good at it.
I love it so much. And dealing with a lot of new media stuff, web series, which is all the craze now. And it's great. I love it.
And, we had your clients on before.
Yeah, it was awesome. Miss Erin Fritsch, who
Yes.
I believe was from the web series Living the Dream.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was awesome. She loved it, and hopefully there'll be more.
And the series, I just thought was adorable. I love the series.
It's still, and they're still in the works for season 2.
Season 2.
Yeah.
She said that it was going to be a while.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a little bit of time, but
there's this thing called scratch money, that kind of stuff
yes,
that comes into play.
You unfortunately need to continue. So
yeah, no, that's no, that just doesn't do. So, do any of your clients have anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, well, not coming up, but we have some stuff bubbling. I wish I could talk about it now, but there's some things that are some really exciting stuff that's coming up as far as series regulars on pilots and test deals. Yeah, so we'll hopefully I'll have more information for you later, but we'll see.
Now, you cut down your roster of clients.
Yes.
Does this now enable you? Because I know a lot of people, and I'm talking to people out there like you, Kendra Montagna.
Hi, Kendra.
A lot of the girls over who work at the backstage in Culver City.
Yep.
And they go through looking for managers and looking for agents.
Yeah.
And then they sign because they get all these promises. Oh, we're going to send you out. You're going to get attention.
Yeah.
And then nothing. They don't even get calls. They don't get, and they feel very neglected by cutting down your roster instead of branching it up with a bunch of names. Just so I've got 30 clients or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find it much better in terms of establishing relationships and keeping them to have a smaller client base?
I do. I mean, in that instance, when people are sitting around sort of waiting for the phone to call or waiting for someone to call them with an appointment, it's tough. I mean, it's sort of a two-way street. Managers have their job that they're doing behind the scenes. Actors are doing their job behind the scenes. No one really gets to see what each other's doing, so it's a little tough to see what's going on. But as far as paring down my client list, I love it because I can give each of them individual attention. And the relationships that I've formed with casting and some networks is great. And it's easier for me to go to them with a select few instead of saying, hey, I have 4 of one type. Now I have, I can go individually with one type and say, hey, look, this is the person that you really need to see because of her credits. And I find it more beneficial to do it that way than to just take on 40 clients as one manager. I just don't. I mean, kudos to people that do that. And I know that they're great at their job and they can do that. That's just not how I can do that. I can't focus that way.
You are very much a people person, and you're a very caring and considerate person. You want to do a good job.
Yeah.
You don't want to schlock anything.
Right.
And I know your work ethic in terms of if you're representing these people, you want to give them the best representation you can.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't benefit either of us if the intention's not being given on that side. It just really means that person's sitting back and collecting a paycheck, which at the end of the day is not, like I said, beneficial for either party. So,
and somebody's always left unhappy.
Someone's always left unhappy. Yes.
And unemployed.
Well, yes. Ugh. Hope that's not the case, but yes.
And I know poor Brian is sitting in the booth, and at the mention of Kendra's name, I saw his ears perk up. Kendra has been down here a couple times, but then her real life work schedule interrupted her ability to come down on Mondays because she likes hanging out down here too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So yes, Brian.
You know what I'm excited about?
What are you excited about?
Is that I grew up on those books that you have right there on the desk.
Oh,
a good transition.
Well, I wasn't getting to them quite yet.
No,
so.
I know, but I keep looking at them, and I didn't know they were doing full color versions.
Well, there's a movie coming, so we're going to talk about that in a moment.
I can't wait.
Well, but before we get to that, besides Byron being here today, we also have calling in a new writer-director, Stanley Jacobs.
Yes.
Stanley has a film that is coming out this Friday. It's already available on iTunes and Amazon, called 96 Souls.
Mm-hmm.
It is beyond intriguing premise. For all you filmmakers out there, there are some really nifty and very cool visual effects and the cinematography using color plus using sound.
Yeah, it's magical.
And, we're going to talk to Stanley because I'm curious because of the fact he shot on the Red Dragon and the Red Epic. And the Red Dragon let him use the Leica some Micron C, which is a very cool, lightweight, like it's a 4-inch lens, but it gives you the full spectrum.
Cool.
In filming.
Is that like the, because forgive me on that, it's a little Greek to me, but is that like the newest?
That's one of the new small cinematic lenses that's out there.
Yeah.
And the Red Dragon is a very, very cool camera.
It's
a very cool camera. And then he was also shooting with the Red Epic and, of course, the good old standby Zeiss Primes.
Okay.
So, which you can never go wrong with a Zeiss Prime in shooting. And given the effects he has, the visuals in the film, I'm curious as to his selection.
Yeah.
For those lenses with the cameras. But so it's going to be interesting talking to Stan. And, of course, added bonus for me, I'm watching the film. And we get we're in the third act. And then lo and behold, Philip Kelly pops up on screen. Another friend of mine who's an actor. And Philip pops up playing an assistant in a mental institution.
Interesting. Okay.
He has dialogue. He has very cool representation in the end title credits.
Yeah.
Which are all beautifully done. Using the colors that we see pop up throughout the film.
Yeah, which is ethereal and magical, and it's.
Yeah, and this is carried through. Kind of like a graphic novel kind of look for the end title. So it's really that was very exciting to see. And I posted on Facebook about it. It's like, oh my God. And Phil immediately he goes, yes, you saw me. And I'm like, yeah, and you even got dialogue. It means you get more money.
Right, exactly. Everyone wants that.
Everybody wants to speak. Now that's an interesting that has bothered me since May 4th.
What's that?
Tony Geary's surprise appearance on General Hospital to help usher off Jane Elliott's character of Tracy.
Okay.
After her 40 years on the show. He pops up, never says a word.
Oh.
It's just a final scene, a final shot.
Maybe that's what, I don't have no idea for that one. Maybe that's
it's like,
it's weird.
Well, it really worked because they hadn't seen each other, when he left the show a few years ago.
Got it. Yeah, so
he went off to Amsterdam. Of course, now they have her leaving, going off on her own. She doesn't need to make peace with the family anymore, with the Quartermains, and she goes to Amsterdam to sell this painting that her father left her that brings her $60 million or something.
Such drama.
Yes, but it happens to be in Amsterdam.
Right, of course.
Which is where, last we heard, that's where Luke Spencer had gone. And we all know that's where Tony Geary moved to. And then she walks into a coffee shop. The eyes meet, slight smiles. and not a word.
So it was the perfect ending.
It was
Yeah,
perfect.
That sounds.
But I wonder, you know, I have to wonder if Tony did this as a favor to Jane because they've been friends for so many years to usher her off, or if he just got scale pay because he didn't say anything.
I mean, why not? It's sort of it pieced together everything beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it was a little bit of both.
No, I mean it was, and the social media just exploded.
Went crazy. I bet.
Just one shot of
Yeah.
Tony reprising his role of Luke.
I wonder how many times that's going to be made into a meme.
There have been a few.
Yeah, I bet.
Especially for the haircut that he has. And he actually gave an interview, and because people are like, what the heck did you do to your hair? Because it's all like lopped over on one side and kind of shaved on the other. And it's like all the rage in Amsterdam.
Oh.
Apparently. The very trendy, fashionable rage.
Oh, man.
But
Gary's the new style icon in Amsterdam.
You know, he had tried to like gel the hair to make it look more, but then finally just gave up. And since this magical reunion is set in Amsterdam, what the heck, it fits.
Why not?
Anybody that knows me knows my great love for General Hospital. Since day one, I have watched that show.
I can tell you have followed it very meticulously.
Since day one.
Yeah.
Hey, my grandmother never missed it. She actually walked into a doctor's office once and says, I know I have this because Jesse on General Hospital has it.
Oh, if my mom used to watch it back in the day, and if I ever had clients on General Hospital auditioning for, it would be more of a thrill for them because they knew that show. Any other show, they'd be like, General Hospital? Oh, yes, I know that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like our good friend Scott Barton, who produces the Stage LA event every year. You know, Scott used to work, you know, in publicity with General Hospital.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I think most of the industry at one point or another, you know, it's like Jeffrey Vincent Parisi was on the show. Ian Buchanan has been on the show.
Oh.
On this show.
Oh, this show.
This
yes.
show.
Okay.
I'm making my rounds through the cast.
Yeah, you got 6 degrees of General Hospital here.
You know. Well, you know, I know Ian, you know, and, you know, Finola Hughes I've known since we worked together on Staying Alive that Stallone directed decades ago with Travolta. I want to get Finn on the show one day. I really do. That would be very, very cool.
Ugh, you got to make that happen.
I really want to. I want to get Finn. I want to get Carolyn Hennessy. Would love to get Nancy Lee Grant.
Yes.
Nancy would... That's my General Hospital wish list.
Your wish list
of guests. Yeah. You know, I don't ask for much in life. No.
Just a short list of General Hospital actors I'd love to have on.
But yeah, it's not often I get to talk about General Hospital.
I know. It's not one of those that you can just slip into any conversation unless it's...
No. But with somebody who appreciates trivial matters like you know.
I do.
And of course, Brian needs a Carol Cook update. You know, Carol Cook did the show again, our annual show before the Stage LA benefit the other week. And Carol is such a dear friend. I love her to pieces. It's Brian's favorite call of the year. Like every year, Carol calls.
He's shaking his head. Yes.
Yeah, he you know, he doesn't understand radio. You gotta say yes.
Yes.
But yes, there it is. But it was the look in his eyes.
It was the look in his eyes. But we have to translate that. We have to describe that. But Brian knows Carol called while we were on the air last week. She called my cell phone and left me a message. She called during the week, and we finally hooked up. And every time she leaves a beautiful, beautiful message because I had told her when she did the show. She loves costume jewelry, but the vintage costume stuff, she collects it. Well, with my father's estate, which we're in 8 years of probate now. Yes, still. But my brother has finally been sending me all of my mother's jewelry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the bulk of, you know, there wasn't too much fine jewelry. The bulk of it was costume, which nobody else wanted because, it's costume jewelry.
Are you kidding? Because costume jewelry is it's what everyone wants, I feel.
Well, and the vintage stuff going back to
especially.
the 50s, the 60s.
Yep.
And I mentioned to Carol, and she goes, oh, I would love to have some. And I promised her I would bring her some. So I picked out select pieces that were some of my mother's favorites.
Oh, nice.
That I have pictures of her wearing in the 1950s and 60s.
Wow.
And I took that to Carol. She would not even go out to meet people after the show. She would not go talk to her family until she unwrapped the boxes that I brought her.
That's
I
so
brought
sweet.
her a very long strand of black jet, that going
Like
back
you
to
do.
the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And that she had to put on immediately. But she
Who could blame her?
but she just, she is just, and every day she's wearing a different piece. She's already found one piece that is her favorite.
Of course. That was probably a hard call, too, I'm sure.
No, right away she fell in love with it.
She found it.
And it was one of my mother's favorite pieces, too, which I thought was really amusing.
Yeah.
But no, she's going through each pair of earrings. Every day she's wearing something different. There are pins. She loves to wear pins. So she's been wearing that. And after she gets through all of it, then she's going to put it together into an ensemble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like one does.
Like one does when you're Carol Cook, the
Well,
legend.
You're Carol Cook, exactly.
Yeah, so it was. I'm so thrilled that Carol is so thrilled,
Yeah.
and the fact that, because I have so much of it, and the fact that somebody is wearing it
Appreciates
and
it.
appreciates
Yeah,
it,
of course.
that means a lot. But so that is our Carol Cook update. So, and but now, as Brian alluded to, we have some very special swag today.
Very special.
I'll even take it out of the tablescape here so that everybody can see it more clearly. Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants is hitting the big screen, people.
Woohoo.
I'm not allowed to give a review on the film, but anybody that knows me knows. Would I be talking about the film if I hated it? Probably not. We did the press day the other day. The creator and author of all the books, Dave Pilkey, was there.
Wow.
Kevin Hart. Kevin, who, of course, voices, let us turn to our notes, who voices the infamous George Beard.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Middleditch, who voices Harold Hutchins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here, you can play with the book.
I've been looking at this, so now I'm going to...
Play with, and see, Dave he autographed it to me and drew a picture for me.
This is amazing.
Isn't it? Ed Helms was there. He voices Mr. Krupp and Captain Underpants. Nick Kroll voices Professor Poopy Pants. He was not at the press day. And then director Dave Soren. Anybody that knows Captain Underpants, 2 4th graders come up with brilliant ideas, and they create their own comic books. And everything is done in a kid's perspective, a 4th grader's perspective in the books. And Byron, since you read them growing up.
Oh, well, of course.
My nephews, 2 sets of nephews. The first set came in when the Captain Underpants books were first coming out. The second set of nephews came in, probably 10 years later. And it was funny at my mother's funeral, of all places. And I hadn't thought of this until I was watching the film. The 2 youngest ones, because they were so young, they didn't know that she had passed away. And they didn't know where Graham was. They had no clue. Well, my aunt and uncle were in from Colorado. And my uncle, apparently, for his own grandkids, he would always pretend to be, this lieutenant colonel in the Air Force would pretend to be Captain Underpants. So he started doing Captain Underpants for my 2 youngest nephews, Eddie and Tommy, at the dinner at the diner after the funeral.
I bet they loved it.
So, that was their introduction to Captain Underpants. But, so Captain Underpants, I have very fond memories of Captain Underpants experiences. But I have to say, and it's not divulging anything, because if you know Kevin Hart, if you know Thomas Middleditch, if you know the Captain Underpants books, you know why they are both so perfect to voice George Beard and Harold Hutchins.
Oh, and I heard it on the previews. Just watching the previews themselves was amazing. Listening to Kevin's voice was... You can hear it and you know exactly who it is, and you're looking at something so iconic and you're like, yes, this is right.
Well, I have a clip from the press conference the other day, and where I asked Kevin and Thomas about how much of their 4-year-old selves are in George and Harold. And of course, Ed Helms had to chime in there about his own heroic youth in preparing for his role.
I want to first congratulate all of you. This is just absolutely fantastic, and it surpasses, I hate to say it, it surpasses the fun of all the books. You really elevated it to a new level.
I agree.
I want to ask Thomas and Kevin, how much like your characters were you in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
Especially you, Kevin. This
Wow.
is, I think, the best role you've ever had.
Listen, this is my honestly most challenging performance at all. Actually, you know what's funny is I think what David was able to do, yes, it's an animation and yes, it's a kid's movie, but you want to make sure that you're grounding, the performance to a certain level of believability within all the fun that you're doing. And it was really pulling from a lot of the things you do in life. And as a kid, I was very much a prankster. I was very much always in trouble because I didn't want to stop laughing. I love laughing in school, and I love making other people laugh. And, in school, that's the worst thing that you can do in the class is be the funny guy because nobody's focusing. Everybody's being funny. Everybody's passing around letters and pulling chairs from underneath the teacher. It was just me. But I really very much was like my character, and I think that's cool. That's what was cool about the movie, and I love the relationship that Thomas and I had, that those characters has, because in school that best friend is very important. That close friend that you have, that you open up to, that you're talking to on a different level on a day-to-day basis, you're confiding in at a young age. That's dope to me. I think that's something that kids can relate to, that they're going to pull away from this film and say, I not only understand that, I get that, but I live that, I am that.
Yeah, for him.
That comment was sponsored by Kevin Hart.
Yes, such a great.
I was also very heroic as a child. Just to be clear.
Almost constantly nearly nude. Yeah. I'll just say that I agree. I sort of later became sort of a jokester in class, but bizarrely, I just realized it the other day. I was like, oh, I had curly hair, I drew comic books, and I like to giggle and laugh. And I probably needed a George, but I never got one, so that was more of a solitary effort. But bizarrely, I was a weird kid who liked to draw comics, so that's pretty strange. Just picture a sadder, more lonely Harold Hutchins than I got.
Now you know why I picked that clip.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Oh, that was hilarious.
And the fact that they both admit,
Yeah.
especially Kevin, is like, and there's a line in the film where, Kevin's character of George is talking about how we've been friends since kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
And the minute you hear it, Kevin's face pops in your head.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But now for everybody, when you watch the video, you see we even have our official Captain Underpants cape. Very, very, very lovely. And I have to give a huge thank you to Fox and to DreamWorks Animation for the lovely swag with the book and the cape.
Yeah.
Especially the book. I get so excited with books. And then to have Dave Pilkey autograph it.
Oh, the above and beyond.
That means everything to me. But we've had some other cool stuff sitting here over the past few weeks for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, so good.
Okay, and while we're playing, all right, let's
Dancing Groot.
Yeah, we have Dancing Groot. Okay, if I can make it, or did I wear the Oh no, I didn't wear the batteries out.
There it is. No way.
Uh-oh. Did I put... Let's see. It's got 3 settings. Okay. There we go.
Nope.
I think that's the motion sensor.
That's the motion sensor one. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Let's put it on that one. Is that one going to work?
There it is.
So, there. So, we have Dancing Groot. We have Captain Underpants. It's just like...
This is like Halloween. Now I know what I'm going to be for Halloween.
Captain Underpants.
Maybe Baby Dancing Groot. Who knows?
One or the other. Yeah. So you see, we do behave like juvenile delinquents at times here on Behind the Lens. But see, I only get to do this when Byron's in town.
Yeah. I mean, every time I come, there's a whole plethora of toys.
Well, and of course, then we have the wind-up Baby Groot.
Of course.
Yeah. We have the wind-up dancing Baby Groot. Oops. Stand up, Groot. There we go.
This is awesome.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. We have laughs. There are occasions we have laughs. But, and of course, now that I wound him, he has to dance out. And isn't his face cute?
I mean, the character in that movie too was so good.
Groot is the best.
He made those scenes.
That's the only reason to see the movie is Groot. Baby Groot.
Baby Groot.
That's it. But going to a more serious subject, and by the way, Captain Underpants will be in theaters on June 2nd, which actually would have been my grandmother's 120th birthday.
Get out of here.
It's like destined, you know. Today is like destined.
Happy birthday, Grandma. Also, Captain Underpants.
Yes, yeah, but but opening on June 9th, and because last week was Armed Forces Week, Friday was Armed Forces Day, and next Monday is Memorial Day, it seems very fitting. There is a new film coming out called Megan Levy, based on the true story of Marine Corporal Megan Levy, canine handler during the first wave of the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
She was, I think, the first woman to actually be on the front lines of combat because she was in the canine unit. And as Marines had said, and as director Gabrielle Cowperthwaite said to me, it's like they said she was in front of the front line.
Wow.
Because at that point in time, canine dogs, the bomb-sniffing dogs, were actually tethered to their handlers. That policy has since changed. But so if one went, the other went flying with them.
Yeah.
But that both did suffer injuries. They did. Rex, her dog, Megan's dog Rex, and herself did 2 tours of duty.
Wow.
Purple Hearts for both.
Both dog and canine
and handler.
Amazing.
But then after Megan retired from the Marines, Rex was still working with other handlers, but she wanted Rex. They had this bond that is incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I can imagine.
And it became the subject of national focus involving Chuck Schumer, of all people, got involved because she wanted to adopt Rex when he was being retired.
Oh, wow.
And because a veterinarian had written unadoptable in his chart because of injuries he had sustained and a facial palsy he developed, they wouldn't let her. Because what the military used to do prior to 2000 and the institution of Robbie's Law, which became codified in the U.S. Code, they would euthanize. They treated they would treat the canines as property, like they left them all or killed them or euthanized them in Vietnam.
That's terrible. Yeah.
So what happened, with Robbie's Law in 2000, then it became possible for the military handlers to adopt the dogs. It's very expensive. You got to pay for it, and sometimes they're overseas, and you've got to pay
to get them out to wherever they are.
That's like anybody interested in the war dogs themselves, go to wardogs.org. And it's the whole history of war dogs and the services that are available for soldiers who want to adopt. And if soldiers don't want to adopt, if the handlers don't want to adopt, they are now opening up to the public can apply to adopt these dogs.
That's amazing.
But in Megan's situation, went all the way to Chuck Schumer, a whole media campaign, and she was finally got permission to adopt Rex. And he lived with her until the end of his life.
That's incredible.
And this is their story.
I really want to see that now.
It is, Kate Mara plays Megan Levy. The military precision in this film is amazing. The consultants that were brought in, everything was done with Marine Corps approval, stamp of approval. So I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah.
Wonderful turns by Bradley Whitford playing Megan's father. Edie Falco plays her mother.
What?
Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy himself, plays a very inspirational senior canine handler.
Amazing. I now you've got me on the hook.
Yeah, you have to see it. And I know we have Stan Jacobs on the line, but before we can Stan, that was so nice of you to call in promptly and early. But we're going to keep you on hold 1 second longer because I want you to hear, because Gabriella Copperthwaite, you all know her from Blackfish. This Megan Levy is her first foray into the narrative format. And if you're listening to what I'm saying about the film, she very easily could have made it a documentary. But she chose to make a narrative and use this as her narrative launch.
Yeah.
So I asked her about that, and here's what Gabriella had to say.
really attracted you to Megan's story?
I think, as you said, I think it was the, to be perfectly honest, curiosity is one of the things that draws me to any narrative, to any story. That's what it was for Blackfish. That's what it was for this. I wanted to depict and kind of understand, crack open a female-driven military film. I was curious about what it's like to come up in that world as a woman.
And especially the Marine Corps.
Like, we're talking, like, boots on the ground, toughest of the tough. And so that was fascinating to me, too. And then the K-9 unit, completely fascinating to me, even though I had worked on military and Iraq War documentaries before. I had never, I knew nothing about the K-9. And so so it was really both of those, and I was like, this is a huge opportunity, a unique opportunity to tell a story that we think maybe we've heard before, like, something that happens in country, and you go through this tough stuff there, you're thrust into a war-like situation, and then you come home and have to kind of deal with that world, having experienced what you've experienced, and but doing it through these two different agents, right? Doing it through a female perspective, and then understanding the K-9 unit,
right?
Was completely fresh. So that drove me.
And you will hear more from my exclusive interview with Megan on our June 5th show.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that one.
See, and too bad you won't be here. You'll be back in New York.
I know.
But right now, do we have Stan? Stan, are you with us?
Yes, hi, Debbie. Nice to hear from you.
Oh, Stan, this is an absolute pleasure to have you. And I have my co-pilot who flew in from New York to do the show. BYRON BEANE is here with us.
Hey, Byron.
Hey.
A producer and talent manager extraordinaire, let me tell you. But 96 Souls, this is quite... I can't even find the right word. It is fascinating. It is intriguing.
Ethereal.
Ethereal.
Yes.
That's the word you like. Ethereal. Yeah. There are very ethereal moments. And, of course, I have to say, as I was watching the film, all of a sudden in your third act, my friend Philip Kelly pops up on screen, and I went, son of a gun.
You didn't know he worked at a state-run institution, did you?
Okay, well, knowing Phil, he could be a patient there. I don't know. Phil knows I love him. But no, that was a nice surprise for me. But on top of the fascinating structure of this film, Stan, where did the idea for this film emerge?
That's very kind of you. What you said. Well, I've always been fascinated with sci-fi, and I knew when I was going to make the film, I wanted to have a very strong visual component to it. So I kind of wrote the story with those things in mind, thinking that we could do something that an audience would be interested in. And I definitely wanted to ground it in reality to some extent, because even though it is sci-fi, I wanted the base of it to somewhat be believable. So a lot of research was done in that.
What kind of research did you do to come up with this? And I'm glad you mentioned your visuals. Before the show, Byron and I were talking about the visuals, and the visuals are just so striking. Mm-hmm. What you have done with color and your visuals, and then your meld and your use of sound in the context of these moments where our professor, Jack Sutri, actually can see the essence of people. But this story... give the audience a rundown of what the basic premise of this story is, and how you developed it in terms of the research that you were doing.
Well, Jack Sutri, he's a research professor at a university. We set the university in Los Angeles. It's a fictitious university, but we sort of imagine it between USC and the 110 freeway, and he's many schools around the world are funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, and it's to help curb the spread of malaria throughout the world, which is a huge killer of people. So the thing with the research in malaria is that it's sort of based on a chemical analysis of odors, because the mosquitoes are attracted by certain things. You know, people give off carbon dioxide, and they also give off odors, and it's a complicated process to figure out why is that and what are they attracted to. So Dr. Sutry's premise was, he thought, well, if we could visualize the odors, that would make it a lot easier to study. And so he goes on this path to do that. And of course, there's a lab accident while he's doing that, and he's actually able to accomplish this. But then there's a personal tragedy that happens in his life, and that kind of affects him, and that transfers that ability to see odors into the ability to see people's true intentions. And it's something he can't control, and he's grappling with it throughout the film, and his funding's at stake, and there's a lot of other obstacles that are jump in front of him while he tries to figure out what's going on.
Well, I have to, kudos to you for casting Paul Statman as Dr. Redfield. He is at his Ben Kingsley most evil best as a potential monetary source for Jack's research. But he has many more self-serving and malevolent purposes in mind, to put it nicely.
Yeah, Paul is great to work with, and that was the thing. There's a lot of research that gets funded by organizations. Now, you want to make sure that there's a firewall between the funder and the actual research that goes on, and of course, there's always questions about that. So the film kind of goes into that question and examines that whole situation.
Yeah, well, how did you go about casting this particular film? Because you've got Grinnell Morris who plays Professor Jack Sutry. You've got Sid Vita, who plays his very loyal assistant, Ram Tamble. Of course, Paul. And a woman that just really leaps off the screen, Toyin Moses, playing Basement Tape. What a performance from her. How did you find this eclectic mix of people?
Yeah, I agree. The individuals you just mentioned, I think they are hardworking actors that do, theater, commercials, whatever, and they're just waiting to be discovered. And the way I went about it was, obviously, when you write a film, you have an ideal cast in mind, and you're always going to the names that we're all familiar with. But the reality, when you do something low budget, is that first of all, you're constrained by your budget, so you won't have a lot of money to offer. Mm-hmm. And actually, even more important than that, if you did get someone that's, a celebrity that's really very, very busy, your schedule of the low-budget film winds up being dictated by their schedule, and something could come out of the blue, and all of a sudden you've got to change your dates, and that could be disastrous for the budget. So I just made that decision early on to go with people that are just really talented. And I sat down for several months, and at that time, when I was casting, IMDb had just come out with a casting service. And if you go on there, there are hundreds of thousands of performers that have their sample work online. You can view it all. And so I just painstakingly went through it. As I mentioned, it took several months. I saw thousands of them. I whittled it down to a list. And it's great because you can search geographic area. You can search if they're SAG. You can search, age range, everything. So I was able to get a pretty good list. And then I just looked at the tapes and picked who I felt, was really good at what they did. And the thing that was amazing is you find out there's a lot of good talent out there.
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Byron as a producer and a talent manager.
Oh, I'm itching to ask you. Did you work with a casting director, or did you do this yourself and painstakingly go through all these IMDb profiles? Because that's a lot of work.
Yeah, and I didn't have the budget to bring in a casting director, and of course, if I was to do this again, I would make sure I would, because it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And casting directors have their finger on the pulse of things, and they can come up with people for you really fast. But yeah, I did it pretty much myself for the leads, and then we did use some local casting services to get some of the minor leads and some of the extras and things like that. But yeah, I took it on myself because of this low budget.
Did you have any names in mind, sort of as prototypes for these characters that you were bringing to life?
No, I didn't do that on purpose. I wanted them all to just go in and read the description of the script and bring what they have to the table. Occasionally, I think in the script I did call out a name or two, but it wasn't for a motto. It was just to give them a sense of where these people are maybe similar to. But I'm a big believer in letting the talent bring whatever they have to the table, and I wasn't locked in. I mean, I had character descriptions, but I was not locked into them 100% because I prefer the personality of the performer to come through its natural essence. As far as long as it's parallel with the role of the character, I just think it makes the performer a little more relaxed, and I think it's just you're not fighting trying to change them from being who they are.
Yeah, keep that through every project that you do, because it's so beneficial to have an actor that can not improvise, but sort of bring to life or add something to the character that you wouldn't necessarily see or had a vision of. But, a lot of people have a rigid description of what they want for characters, and they go by that without allowing the true essence of that particular actor to come through. So I love that you did that. That I'm sure that added so much more to your film than you could imagine.
Yeah, and they occasionally came up with a line or two, and if it worked, we included it. I mean, Sid, of course, you can't hold him back. He'll always come up with something, and he certainly did. Yeah. And then Kevin Rocky had suggestions. Paul Stabman, they all did. Jewel Greenberg, and they were just all wonderful people. And even Toyin, when we talked about her character, because because of her situation, she wound up being homeless on the street, and she fell out of the foster care system. And her background could have been many different things. And at first I thought, I'm going to give her a little pipe to smoke, and my reasoning was maybe it helped to wean off any type of drug issue she had in the past. And then she said she didn't really see the character that way. She thought this character didn't really have a drug issue, but she just came from a different place. And I thought that was cool, and we went with that, and I think it worked fine.
Well, something that I love with the script and the structure of it is you open the door and you actually entertain discussion amongst the characters, with the science, religion, visions, angels, essences. You have some very interesting dynamic structuring going on within the story itself. Was it hard to find that balance within the characters and the story?
It was, because the last thing I want to do is make a preachy film, and I'm not one who's an advocate of anything either way. I sort of like just to present things, present these ideas and let them, hit people the way they would normally hit them, and let the people take what they want from it. But it was a little bit of a balance, as you mentioned, because you don't want to come across too heavy in these aspects of these different things. And again, I didn't want to lose reality too much, and I sort of always wanted to channel that. And I did do a lot of research, and actually there has been scientific research on what exactly is a soul and what can it be identified. And there's no conclusive evidence, but there's definitely a lot of theories out there. And of course, there's been a lot of research on odors and those aspects of science that definitely have some grounding.
See, I just find all of that so fascinating.
Me too. I'm just listening to you going,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just so fascinating, Sid. But, hand in hand with that fascination, your visuals, your cinematography, and then your special effects, with your layering of color, just absolutely beautiful. How did you design your visual tonal bandwidth of the film?
As I keep saying like a broken record, we didn't have a lot of money, so.
But that's when you get the most creative.
That's true. Mm-hmm. The first thing I wanted to do was maybe to come up with a way of getting, Jack's going to see these visions, and so the visions need to look different than reality. Let's try to do as much of that in the camera as possible. So that's when I remember when I was younger, I used to take a lot of still photography, and a lot of it involved infrared film. Kodak used to make an infrared film stock for 35mm still cameras. And it was just fascinating because you could shoot reality and it looked totally different. It looked very surrealistic. So it turns out with digital cinematography, it's very friendly to IR photography. And there's a way to alter the camera so that you can describe a narrow range of the IR piece of the spectrum, and you get these very strange looking landscapes, and people look very different in it as well. So that would be the basis of the look. So that was, there you go. You shoot the scene, and that effect is done. And then in post, we went in and we layered in the other aspects. And the way we did that was we would just shoot. Say like there's a flower giving off some fragrances. Well, to visualize the fragrances, we just shot some dry ice and composited onto the background that we shot in IR, and then we added some color to it.
I mean, because it's all just so stunning to look at, especially one of the early sequences after Jack is subjected himself to the chemical, to the experiment, and he sees the trees down the street, and every tree is a different color, and you've got little hummingbirds and birds that are giving off that dry ice, odor against a color. It's as Byron said earlier, it's very ethereal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was very cost effective to do it. Of course, they're very short sequences because it's still, you have to pay money to come in to do the compositing and everything, so you have to keep all that within budget. And the film was kind of shot classically. Most of the time the camera's on a tripod. There's maybe 3 handheld shots in the whole film, and we used a lot of, instead of a dolly, which requires a lot of setup time, we used a jib. And the jib was nice because it's a free swinging arm. As long as you have a good jib operator, you can get a decent result out of it. And a lot of shots that may look like dollies were done on a jib. So that's another way we've saved time and money. And of course, we were very careful with the production sound, and all the sound you hear in the film, except for all the effects and everything, that was the actual production sound. So those are 3 ways we're able to save money on doing the film.
You got creative.
Very creative. Is that one of the reasons you went with the Red Dragon as one of your cameras, because of what it could do in camera for you?
Yes. I had researched it for a few years, the results that people were getting off the camera. And there's definitely different camps out there, obviously. And I'll go with anything that does the job. I don't care what the camera is, but the Red Dragon was affordable, and it definitely delivered a really good look at that time, so that's why we went with it.
And of course, you paired that up with the Leica, with the Summicron C, which that is a very cool little lens. I played with that at NAB a few years ago, just before it was released. It's lightweight, it's small, and it gives you a very cinematic.
Yeah, Leica glass is some of the best glass in the world. People know that from years ago in the still world. A lot of the early photojournalists, they shot with Leicas, and those stunning, beautiful black-white pictures you see were through their glass. And they had entered the cinema field several years ago, and the lenses they produced were very, very nice lenses. And the other aspect at this time, the Dragon was one of the early large sensor cameras. So a lot of wide-angle lenses that you might want to get, like a Cook at that time, they didn't cover the entire sensor.
Right.
So you would get a little vignetting. So the Leica had 2 levels. They had the high-end lenses, and these were like the little more affordable lenses. Then we rented those, and when we were in post, we were looking at the images. They were just edge-to-edge sharpness lines. Horizontal lines didn't bend. It's just beautiful optics.
No, and it shows in the final product. It really does. I have to the sound. Beyond impressed that the sound is the sound in camera that you've got. And of course, you bring in Mitch Dorff as your sound editor and your re-recording mixer. He's got an impressive list of credits. His work is very well known. As a matter, yes, Byron, yes, he's done.
I got excited. I saw Veep.
Yes, he's done he's a re-recording ADR mixer on Veep, and then he just worked with my friend Rick Romanois on his new film Shot Caller.
Wow.
That's gonna be at LAFF.
Wonderful. Yeah, Mitch. I've worked with Mitch for many. I think when Mitch was over at PLP Audio, I think that and they were acquired by the new company with. I think he at one point said, Stan, you're the longest client we've had here. But Mitch used to always mix my commercials, and we had a good rapport. And I'm very open-minded. I don't care if someone's worked in video or if they've worked in television, if they have a talent and we're doing a film, and I think that their talent could work in this, we go with it. And he did a great job doing the mix. And a lot of the production people as well were from the television world. But they adapted. They saw what we were trying to do. They got on board, and it all worked. So I'm not really prejudiced as far as what the background of someone is. I think as long as you clearly define what your project is and you know what you want to do, there's a lot of talent out there from all different disciplines that can help you do it.
Mm-hmm. It's all about hiring the best person for the job.
You got it.
That's always my mantra. Some people don't like it, but
That's true.
yeah, something I found very interesting is your score. You use music very sparsely here. You don't go overboard with music. What was your thinking behind that?
Well, the number one thing is always, does a scene need it? And there's a very big climactic moment nearly in the last third of the film before the end. And Noah Lipsey, who did the original music, he composed a beautiful resolution. It was like a haunting theme that resolves itself. And when we were sweetening the film, Mitch saw the power of the performance. He said, Stan, why don't you not go with the music in this one piece, even though it's a gorgeous piece of music? And we decided not to. What you do is you evaluate the scene and you just decide, yeah, this is strong. Without it, let's just use it sparsely.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really, really well done with 96 Souls, Stan, is that just because you have the tools to throw in everything, including the kitchen sink, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there's that old overused saying, less is more.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is your first feature, correct?
I did a feature documentary about 15 years ago. It was about an aspect of the advertising industry, but this is my first narrative feature, absolutely.
What was the learning curve like for you, making the leap into the world of narrative feature?
I didn't think much of it. I just, said I wanted to do this. I sat down, wrote the script, and then, moved in and did it. Of course, I'm a big film lover. I've loved film all my life. I mean, I like films from the Gold Rush up through Tony Erdmann. I mean, I've seen so much, and they've all influenced me. But I would say that with this film, I mean, it's just an urge I've always had is to make films, and so I knew I wanted to do this one day, and I finally sat down and said, okay, let me get this done. And that's what that whole background was.
So what would you say is probably the greatest thing that you learned about yourself as a director in making 96 Souls?
Well, let's see. I don't know if I learned this, but it confirmed I really love doing it. Especially working with the performers, that was probably the best part. They were all very generous people. They were all very professional, and you couldn't ask more than that. I mean, it was, and of course, working with the crew as well. It's when you bring this family together. We did it in 23 days. We had 20 different locations. It was just very exciting, and if I was to do it again, I probably I told them, a few people that asked me, if the only thing I would do different next time is an interesting thing in the writing phase. I would have the cast come in, do a table read of the script at that point, and tape it, and then cut it together, and then rewrite based on the edited version what the table read was, and see if that would change anything. Because you always learn things after you shoot something, and you think, okay, maybe we could twist that, or maybe go in this direction or whatever.
It's so funny because that's almost the number one answer that I'll get from directors. What would you do differently, or what would you do over again? They always say, if I had a table read, I would record it and go from there. It's like it's funny. You don't realize that when you first hear the table read and you hear the words come to life, you're like knocked out. You're blown away. Right.
But sometimes it might be great just to sit down later on. And I'm not saying it would make it better. It's just that it might take you in a different direction. Or whatever.
Exactly. So, and stuff might pop out that you just didn't even knew existed in the first place.
Exactly.
So now the film is in theaters this Friday. In Los Angeles, I know it's at the Laemmle Music Hall in Beverly Hills this Friday for your theatrical run. And it's around the country at other theaters as well. But it's also available on iTunes and Amazon, correct?
Yeah, first it's on iTunes. There's pre-orders up already, and then it becomes available on May 30th. But the theatrical in 12 cities starts on the 26th. It will be in the cities for 7 days. And again, originally I was going to do a theatrical release earlier in the year and then wait the 90 days and then go out to all these streaming platforms. But, you know, this industry, as you know, more than I know, is changing every few months. And it just made more sense that day and date was the way to do this and to get the word, because you're spending a lot of time and effort getting the word out, and so why not make it all happen at the same time?
And of course, Memorial Weekend, it's a holiday weekend, and people are going to be going to the movies.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm hoping maybe they'll get bored with Baywatch and go over to the next theater and see 96 Souls.
See, that's just it. You can only watch Ridiculum so long before you want something a little meatier and you know, for a change of pace. Yeah, Stan, thank you so much. This has been a delight having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Stan.
Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Debbie. And I just want to thank you also for the programs you've done about filmmaking, especially on the TCM network, because that's one of the most important treasures we have in this country, and I hope they keep it going because there's so much film history that would be lost without TCM, and so I really applaud you for taking the time to do those things you do.
Oh, well, thank you. And, you know, if you're a fan of TCM, let me just throw this out there for you. Culver City is celebrating its centennial this year, and on August 6th, Louis B. Mayer's grandniece, Alicia Mayer, is going to be I'm going to be moderating with her a Q&A on the MGM legacy and the legacy of the Mayer and the David O. Selznick families.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So anybody in LA on August 6th, tickets are going to go on sale soon. And she's going to bring family archival materials and all kinds of things. So if you love classic film, that is going to be a great place to be on August 6th. So
I'll be there.
Well, you should. You should, Stan. Stan, again, thank you so much. 96 Souls in theaters on Friday. Thanks, Stan.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was so lovely.
That was lovely, and it was interesting to hear his process in this, and his creativity in this filmmaking process.
And the fact that he went through all of those IMDb profiles himself.
I was exhausted when I heard him say that.
I saw the look on your face said it all.
God, that's intense. It's intense. It's intense when you go through a casting process, and that's what you're faced with, because it becomes a numbing experience after a while if you're going through it all on your own. But
it also shows his passion and conviction that
100%.
You got limited resources. I do this myself, or I spend money on casting and have to cut back somewhere else.
Yeah, and the fact that he found and knew what he wanted was amazing. Because usually that's why people will take on casting directors, because they sort of have an idea, but they don't know exactly what they want until it comes into the room. So.
And I'm sure you encounter that a lot.
A lot, yes, I do.
Where they have no clue what they want.
Yeah, most of the time. But you know, sometimes that adds for the spontaneity of the project. If you come in, like I said before, if you come in with a rigid mind and saying this is the person that I want, prototypes are good, but keeping it open enough to give it some leeway for certain actors. And that's why I'm celebrating the fact that we have so much diversity coming in films and television now, because you know, you may have written this role for one person and someone comes in and blows you out of the water, a different ethnicity, and that's what you use, because you know that's real life.
Well, and that's just, as I said, it should, and you know, this has always been my mantra. You know, in the 11 years or whatever we've known each other, is the best person for the job.
Period. Yeah.
That's just it. I don't care. Male, female, pink, green,
anything,
black, white, green, orange. No, it's whoever is the best person for that role.
I agree.
Uh-oh. We're all out of time. Brian gave us our mark. We are all out of time today.
That was too much fun. I could keep going.
Can you believe it? We're totally out of time today. Well, I can't thank you enough, my friend Byron Beane, for being here.
This was so much fun.
And I know you'll come back.
Of course I will.
When you're in town. I know you will. And of course, thanks to Stan Jacobs. Yeah, it is well worth going to see the film. If you're in one of the 12 cities, you can go to 96souls.com, which is the film's website, and it has all the theaters listed of where you can go to the theater. But again, you wait till next week. You've got iTunes and Amazon and the streaming platforms to see it. And it is really, for filmmakers, it is well worth the watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, until we are not here next week because it's a holiday and the radio station decided they want to take the day off.
How dare they?
I know. My father's rolling over in his grave at that one. So I'll be back on June 5th. And until then, I'm Debbie Elias with
Byron Beane.
This is Behind the Lens.